3 exemptions. So it varies from state to state. I just wanted to make note of that. Now, homeschooling, I found it very helpful and beneficial, but I know there's a lot of different things you can do when you have a child on the spectrum. Some different sensory diets, sensory therapies, the weighted blankets, things of that nature. What have you found helpful in your journey through autism?
Okay, so when my sons were first diagnosed, my oldest was totally sensory. I mean, he gagged on 9 out of 10 things he put in his mouth to eat. He craved deep input, and the proprioceptive input, which is basically deep pressure, sensations in your joints, muscles, all the connective tissues, all of that lead to more body awareness. And I felt like my oldest was just seeking that so much. I mean, like literally bouncing off the walls, literally running into and bouncing off of walls, a ball of energy, which I feel so many people face with autism and ADHD, and even kids that are undiagnosed. You know, they have this hyperactivity. They're trying to get out this. They need this stimulation. So even activities like pushing or pulling a heavy laundry basket, like have them pull or push the laundry basket to where you need to put it to fold the clothes, or do wheelbarrow walk with them, you know, to bed to go brush their teeth. It's just like as many little activities like that as I could add, because at first I felt like I had to do a sensory diet, half an hour a day, we're going to do the sensory activities. And then I felt like a guilty mom for never getting that solid hour done. And I found doing the spurts throughout the day was actually more beneficial. Just like eating, your body needs that fuel. And when you have these sensory issues, you need that input or output. And a lot of times these kids get, you know, pushed aside, or like people think they need to be calmed down in other ways. But if you actually let them burn off that steam, get an indoor trampoline, little things like that can just make the biggest difference.
Even the Wii Fit's a good option if you don't have room for a mini trampoline. I agree with you. The sensory diet, for those of the, maybe they're new, maybe they have a child recently diagnosed. How did you find out about a sensory diet? Was it a therapist or?
Raising a sensory smart child. The author's last name is Beal, I believe, B-I-E-L. That was just the greatest book. I recommend that to everybody. And we had a great OT that said, this is the book you've got to read. And in it, it's like the Bible of sensory diets. And it's a very good, easy read. And I had an OT with 20 years of experience with both sons. She was the one who came to our home, one right after the other. So I was just very blessed in that aspect that she had so much experience already.
Well, it sounds like it.
And it was still something that was a big transition, though. Like, at first, it's almost intimidating to see the professionals kind of open up your children, and then you try.
It's overwhelming. I mean, I remember the day my child got the diagnosis, hearing all the different therapies and basically not to expect much of my child. It can be very overwhelming, you know, when you first go into this world of autism. I'm saying this for the benefit of the listeners who may be new to the diagnosis that their child has just recently been diagnosed. And for your information, OT stands for Occupational Therapist, for the people that are new. Because it's a whole different world, is it not, Lydia? I mean, all these different terms, stimming, flapping. I mean, it almost sounds like a different language at times. And then you have the neurodiversity and all these groups within groups and factions. And there's the Asperger group, and then there's the autism, PDD-NOS, and then you throw in ADHD with some of them. I mean, no two children are alike. They may be similar, but they cannot be the same. So I'm just thinking of all the issues that ran through my mind when I first found out about the diagnosis and just to find time for myself. Do you find time for yourself? Do you make sure you structure that?
Yeah, and I'm lucky to have a husband who we will literally take turns taking breaks because we both recognize, at the end of the day, you usually need to decompress. So especially when you don't get a break from your children, it's nice to make sure that you get that social interaction with your own peers.
That is good.
That's important.
That's very good. To talk to another adult. And it is often in the autism community that relationships and marriages do not hold out with the stress of having a child with autism. There are some not typical, typical hurdles that you have to overcome. And the way I look at these children is that they learn differently. So I had to learn to teach my child differently. I had one with autism and one without. Now, people have been talking about weighted blankets for quite some time. And would you like to explain what it has done for your children?
Sure. First of all, I want to explain what they are real quick.
All right. Good point.
They have weighted, they're washable. They're these weighted plastic pellets that are sewn in channels and quilted into the blanket according to the user's body weight. The typical recommended formula by most occupational therapists is 10% plus 1 pound of, the body weight of the person who's using it. However, a lot of people like theirs even a little heavier. But, excuse me. So I looked into it when my son was newly diagnosed, about 3.5 years old, was not sleeping well. I did not want to try something like melatonin on a 3-year-old, and $200 plus for these weighted therapy blankets. And I was just floored. And I had sewn before, and I said, you know what? I'm going to buy a sewing machine. And I bought everything I needed to make him his first weighted blanket for under what it would have cost me to buy one. And I thought, I'm going to make these more affordable, because at this point, honestly, not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but stuff's going downhill fast. Baby brothers are regressing. My health is not good. I'm a waitress at the time. I quit my job at Cracker Barrel. I needed to make money somehow. And it was just kind of like a flashbulb thing. Like, I could maybe help people and make some money, because there's absolutely nobody else at the time. This was 3 years ago. So I began to make them for sale, selling mostly locally. And then, all along they're helping my oldest sleep, but my youngest didn't want anything to do with one until he was a little older, and now he uses one. But without it, I can tell a difference. Like, if we forget it and we go somewhere, they don't sleep it. So. And there was like an episode of a popular show called Parenthood where one of the kids is on the spectrum. He had a weighted blanket, and that was about a year ago, and that made them very mainstream. And ever since then, I was selling them on Etsy, and that, I really have made a lot of sales on Etsy. And there are other people making them now for more affordable prices, like me, which I am glad, because there is a need for it. But they are still really sought-after therapy product, because not only do people on the spectrum like them, but also like a lot of chronic pain patients and restless leg syndrome patients can benefit, as well as like all sorts of anxiety, general anxiety. A lot of people just put a wrap or a blanket on them, and it's like being embraced. It's that deep pressure, and it's common to most, not everybody, of course.
No,
honestly, there's a few kids where it's the opposite. It gives them too much input, and they don't like weighted products.
Well, I could see where that might be true. Now, I know they could be quite expensive. I know your prices are probably subject to change, but where do they vary? Do they vary on the size of the blanket and how heavy it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can talk about the price if you want.
Okay. Well, I get my pellets from an autism dad who's a polymer science who formulates them, because it's just, one of those tricky things. I try not to use plastic at home. But
right.
These are high-quality plastic pellets, and they're the most expensive part of the blankets. That's why all weighted blankets are going to be a small investment. My most popular size, 40 by 60 inches up to 8 pounds, starts around $70. With shipping, it's $82. And that's the size I was telling you when I began was $200. I'm not exaggerating.
Oh, I've seen some of them so outrageous. You're absolutely right on that point. That's a lot more affordable. So, that's reasonable. You have to buy your materials to make it. Yeah.
Right. I also have 10% of my profits go to giveaways. So, in a year, I've given almost 20 weighted blankets away. I don't even know what that values out to, but I'm just so thankful to be able to make some money from home. That was what I promised to the universe. Please, I'll give 10% back. And it really makes me happy to be able to have, that's on my Facebook page. If you look up Weighted Solutions, this time of year I have one like once a week where it's completely free giveaway. And that's really nice because I understand, not everybody can afford a $70 blanket either.
Well, we had to make our choices.
And sensory, food sensitivities.
No, I do understand. Now, your Etsy site, would you like to say your Etsy site? I'm going to put it in the show description for people that listen to the archives that go to Blog Talk Radio. I didn't have a chance to put it in the description. But if you want to say it so people can hear it, because it sounds like it's a very good price with high-quality supplies.
If you just search weighted, as in weighted blankets, Weighted Solutions, that's the store name.
Weighted Solutions blankets?
Yes, it's just Weighted Solutions.
Okay, I got you. That sounds really good.
And I'm going to put weighted vests up there tonight, which is another thing. A lot of people wear the clothes that give them that same input, and that will help kids like all day at school or going out.
Have you ever thought about doing a shoulder shrug?
I do make wraps and pillows for your lap. So there's a few different things on there.
Now, do you think these weighted blankets might help someone that, not picking on nursing homes, but maybe it might help them feel more grounded and assured, those blankets that they put on the wheelchairs? I've always wondered if that would be a good market and helpful to the individual. Like Parkinson's,
You're completely right, because they already use the weighted those reborn baby dolls. They use the same pellets in those as weighted blankets use, because they create that realistic weight. And those are very expensive because people sculpture the faces. And
they try to make it look like the person. And so.
Right. And I think, the older people probably enjoy holding a baby too, but I've thought about that. It would be cheaper for them and easier to wash and take care of. Because I make pillows out of the same laminated material as cloth diapers for like therapists and schools that are easy to just wipe off. But everything I make is also machine washable, which is nice. Except for the vests will have sandbags. They're not the same plastic pellets. But anyways, my vests will start at $40, which is also very affordable as far as weighted vests go.
I wonder if you if you did ever think about the nursing home aspect. They have these feeding aprons that can be used for people in nursing homes or children on the spectrum or people on the spectrum that are nonverbal and need further assistance than, say, a child that can get the food into the mouth. And maybe that might be an avenue, or have you already pursued that?
No, but that's a good idea. One man told me a hairdresser had a weighted apron that his son, he took his son to. Which,
wow.
And I've had dentists tell me the leaded things, like those sometimes they keep the lead apron on the kids the whole time.
It's true.
It calms them down. And
I had to have some work done with my younger daughter, and they use the apron that you would use for the x-ray just to calm her down. Oh, there's lots of different things you could do with this. That would be wonderful. Cost effective, too.
I know, if only there was more hours in the day.
Well, maybe you can find a partner, another mother that has a